What's up, guys? John Bird III here, and today we got a good one for you. We're going to talk about how do you pick the right reel for the technique. I have 3 reels behind me. One is a general purpose reel, and the other 2 are technique specific, but they're very popular reels within the Lose lineup. But I want to talk about how I decipher between picking what reel for the technique. So I have 3 things that I go by anytime I'm picking out a reel. The first thing is gear ratio. What am I going to use this reel for? If I'm just buying another reel to add to my collection, I'm going to go 7.5 to 1 because that's a great all-around gear ratio. If I'm doing something very technique specific, like maybe flipping or pitching, I may go with the 8-speed reel. So that is the first thing that I look for. The second thing that I look for is line capacity. To me, line capacity is one of those things sometimes I feel like anglers look over. Unless you're talking about a reel that you're going to make really long casts, that's when you're going to need a lot of line. And that's why sometimes some people get intimidated by the Pro SP, but that's not one of the reels we're talking about today. But that is the second thing I look for is line capacity. Am I going to have to put a lot of line on this? If I backlash this reel really bad, how much am I going to have to cut out and how much am I going to have to put back? And the third and final thing that I look for is weight. How much does this reel weigh? Because that's going to determine how much it's going to play on my wrist depending on the technique. And so that plays a big part. So those are the 3 things that I look for. And today we're about to go ahead and talk about the 3 reels. So the first reel we're going to talk about today is the Team Lose Hypermag. Yep, that's the Gen 2 model. We already kind of talked about this. But one of the great features that I like about this reel, which is one of the 3 things that we already talked about, is weight. This reel only weighs 5.2 ounces. And so when I'm doing a technique like flipping and pitching, frogging, anything where I'm having to do a lot of maneuvering with my wrist, this reel is going to work great simply because of the weight. Also, the gear ratio. So this reel right here is in 7.5 to 1. So that's literally a great all-around gear ratio that you can use for any technique. Bladed jigs, spinner baits, flipping and pitching, frogging, top water like the sexy dog, anything. You can even crank with this. You just got to slow down if you're going to. But it's still a great all-around gear ratio. So if you had to have one gear ratio, 7.5 to 1 or any 7-speed gear ratio reel, that's the way to go. This reel right here also has a great line capacity. It's not too much, so it has the right amount of line that you can put on here. And if you backlash it, I mean, you really don't feel as bad because it's not going to hurt you too much. So that's why I like this reel, because it's great all around, from the weight to the amount of line it holds to the gear ratio. This reel is a workhorse for me. The second reel, which is a specialty reel that we're going to talk about, is the Team Lose BB1 Pro. Yep, a lot of people love this reel, and I'm just going to tell you, it's a great reel, but a lot of people get this reel misconstrued. This reel right here is a 6.2 to 1, and I use this for heavier crankbaits. So 5XDs, 6XDs, red eye shads, anything heavy. That's what this reel for. In cranking specifically, that's what this reel is for in my lineup. Now, this reel holds a lot of line. If you backlash this thing really bad, that is a lot of line that you're going to have to use. Now, on the flip side of that, you can put mono or some form of backing under there before you put your fluorocarbon line on here. But if you're not one of those guys that put backing on here, you will waste a lot of money for the simple fact that it's going to cost you to put line back on here. But it performs great. 6.2 to 1. That's cranking all day long. Deep spool, I'm making a long bomb cast with a 5XD, 6XD, and I make a couple quick turns of the handle to get the bait down there, and I'm grinding that bill on the bottom. So that's why I got this reel. It's specifically for cranking, and not only that, deep cranking at that. Unless I'm throwing a red eye shad, and I will throw a red eye shad on this from time to time. Now, if you're thinking about buying this reel for throwing like a 1.5, a chick magnet, something like that, this isn't your reel, because this reel's sweet spot is for the bigger, heavier bait. So again, 5XDs, 6XDs, 8XDs, 10XDs, half ounce red eye shads, the 3/8 ounce new red eye shad, whatever. This reel's wheelhouse is heavier bait, but you will learn more about this reel as we talk about my cranking setups, and that's going to be a 6-part series, so stay tuned for that. The final reel that we're going to talk about today is the Team Lose Hyperspeed. Yeah, you see it, that Ferrari candy red is crazy. So this reel is a 9-5-1. That's right, you heard me, 9-5-1. It brings in 40 inches of line per turn. Now, one thing I didn't mention about the BB1, but I'll go ahead and mention that with this reel. These reels both weigh about the same, so they're about 6.8 to 6.9 ounces. So it's not necessarily a heavy reel, but I will say that's an average weight for a Baitcaster today. Somewhere in the mid to upper 6s into the 7-ounce range. I feel like that's average. It's not too heavy, it's perfect. But 40 inches of line per turn every full 360 rotation of this reel. This reel for me is top water walking baits. So Sexy Dog Juniors, Sexy Dogs. I don't throw this, but the Mega Dog. Any type of top water walking baits. Also, another great bait that you can throw on this reel is like your mock patroller, those plopping style baits or buzz baits. This reel will work perfect simply because of the gear ratio. Now, when you're talking about a 9-5-1, you want this reel to be just for a technique that you're having to reel in a lot of line and to try to get your bait and the fish back to the boat super fast. When I'm using this in the summertime on Lake Murray and those bluebacks are spawning and the bass are just going bonkers on top water, this reel right here will bomb cast a Sexy Dog, and I've even had it to the point to where I've spooled this reel just making a very long cast. If you want to throw a big worm in the summertime, money. I'm gonna just tell you, it's money. Now, I wouldn't say throw a frog with this reel simply because of the gear ratio. When you're talking about throwing a frog into heavy cover and trying to pull them out of that, I wouldn't go this route. But we're going to talk about my frog reel in another video too. Probably when it's closer to throwing a frog, we're going to learn about what my frog reel is, because you need something heavy duty if you know what I'm talking about. But all around, this reel is great. This wouldn't be a reel I throw a crankbait on simply because the gear ratio. But for weight in hand, it's great. For the gear ratio, it's very, very technique specific, and also line capacity, perfect amount. Like I said, I can bomb cast this reel. It holds about 120 yards. And so I can bomb cast. I can literally about cast every piece of line off of this reel. No backing. And it's crazy. So those are the 3 reels that I want to talk about specifically as a general all around idea to show you what 3 things I look for. So just as a reminder, the 3 things I look for: number 1, weight. Is it a heavy reel? Is it going to cause fatigue in my wrist? Number 2, line capacity. Does it hold a lot of line? Do I need a lot of line for the technique that I'm going to use it for? Last thing, gear ratio. What is going to be the best gear ratio I need for the technique? Those 3 things right there will help you find the best reel. When you're able to answer those questions, it will make your reel buying process so much easier. Once I narrow that down, there are some guys talk about ball bearings. I'm not a ball bearing guy because there are reels on the market today that have 0 bearings. Some reels have 4. I'm not a ball bearing guy. But those 3 things right there will really help you to dial in what reel you need to get the job done. So stay tuned because we got more technique specific content coming your way. Remember, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like this video, share this video with somebody that's trying to find the right reel for whatever technique that they're trying to throw. I'm JB3, and I'll catch you later.